Hari Om, and greetings from Niagara Falls, and a joyous Deepavali to all. How many of you, by a show of hands, have watched the Ramayana series from back in the day that I think Premanand Sagar making? Yes? Okay. I have watched this many times also, and one aspect of this serial or part of the culture back in the day that really stood out to me was every time good news was shared, someone got a necklace. This person was born, so this person got a necklace, or the weather was good, so this person got a gold ring. Matters like that. As I thought about it more in real life, what I came to realize this is indicative of happy people become helpful people. Happy people become helpful people. They're the ones who work the hardest, who have the least amount of expectations. And it is for this reason that a saying in our community is that our community is not for our community, but rather our community is for society. The smaller is for the bigger in the same way that the part is to serve the whole. And magnifying this even more, quite often when we reflect on Deepavali, it's about how one light spreads to another and another and another. All of this, all of these are reflections for our Giving Across Generations workshop that all of us are part of right now. I want us to reflect more on differences in generations, particularly between those of the first generation and second generation when it comes to immigrants to Canada and America, those who are born in America and Canada. Please share in the chat the insecurity that my parents would have, my parents' generation would have. That insecurity, what they struggled with, what do you think the cause for that would be? Think lots about those who have immigrated into the American and Canadian societies. If they're struggling, if they have an insecurity, what caused this? Think lots about it. Fear, but go deeper into this. Yes, living for survival, lack of financial stability, difficulty assimilating. These are all accurate thoughts. I'm going to extrapolate a little bit in this regard. I would say one facet of this is that their parents maybe didn't have the time and effort to nurture them the way that second generation kids were nurtured. So let me give you an example. And all of this is anecdotal. My mother and father each had 4 siblings. I had 2 siblings, myself and my sisters. Now my kids have 1 sibling, as in there's 2 in our family. So there's just more availability of effort and time to nurture when there's less kids around. I mean this in a very factual sense. When I think of Sheila's parents, both sides of those families have more than, I think, 5 or 6 siblings. So there's less nurturing. And on account of that less nurturing, when they immigrated to America and Canada, the way that they felt security was external. By owning a home and driving a above average car and so on. Is everyone feeling me? We're trying to understand the psychology of generation to generation, particularly the first and second. So now I want us to fast forward to the second generation now. I identify as a second generation based on age, that I was born in Canada. I didn't immigrate from anywhere. Even though time has changed, my parents were born in the 50s, I was born in the 80s. Somehow, though time has changed, the mindset or the psychology didn't. That adaptation never took place. And so the struggles or the insecurity that I would have, or my family would have, or my friends would have, or my peers would have, that struggle or insecurity, instead of me trying to fill that in a EQ kind of way, in an SQ kind of way, I'm still trying to do this externally. Specifically, doing this through possessions. More articles, more stuff. And there's a great confusion or moha with this, that external factors will lead to that internal security. And this is all distilled to the second generation being possessive. Being possessive externally, being possessive about their families. On Monday nights, we have a parenting culture class, and we repeatedly reflect on intensive parenting. That we feel possessive about our kids. Understanding all of this anecdotally, in our community, we have a great emphasis on training in giving, to break out of this cycle of externality will lead to security, that possessiveness will lead to security. This giving ideally is of effort. In Sanskrit, we would describe this as sadhana. Lighter than that is giving of time, which we would describe as seva. And lighter than this is the entry point, the starting point in this training. It is giving of resources, or dana. It is easiest to give resources, harder is to give seva, harder is to give sadhana. When I check in with people, there's lots of people doing seva, but not so many people engaged in sadhana. Because it's easier to give seva than it is to give sadhana. So we have this training, and anyone who's following through with this, giving dana, giving seva, giving sadhana, resources, time, and effort, they become less possessive. We intellectually all know being possessive is unhealthy. Being possessive of a parking space, being possessive of a relationship, being possessive of an idea. Through such training that perhaps the first generation didn't have the privilege for, but the second generation has more access to, and the third generation even more access to. When we become less possessive, we start to feel the divine's lila more. I've shared a lot about when people know the backing behind the multiverse, this is all a lila. When we forget the backing behind the multiverse, then all of this is Maya. So this is training in being less possessive, enjoying the lila more. And this training can and should start as soon as possible. It doesn't matter what generation you identify with, because those are simply labels. I'm extrapolating feelings from generations, but as soon as one becomes conscious of themselves, they should start training in being immune in possessiveness. So whether it's one losing their tooth and instead of asking money from the tooth fairy, finding an opportunity to support another person who needs help with dental hygiene, matters like that. My final sentiment before we get to hear lots of seekers from lots of different places and spaces, I came across a lovely quote, which I've mentioned a few times now, and I'm going to share it one more time. Though this is an environmental quote, it really has to do with possessiveness, and that is, the most environmentally friendly product is the one you didn't buy. The most environmentally friendly product is the one you didn't buy. We almost justify our possessiveness or our insecurity through reduce, reuse, recycle. But R0 is refuse. Refuse to be possessive. Refuse to feel that externalities are going to make you secure, because by doing so, you invest much more in yourself then. You get into that seva, you get into that sadhana. Joyous Deepavali to all once again, and our philanthropy for society circle will continue.
Gratitude, Vivekji, for that lovely introduction. Good evening, fellow seekers. I'm Shrikant. I'm one of the members of the Philanthropy for Society team. Gaurav and I are going to walk you through some of the material that we prepared and talk to you a little about how our community has shared with society. Next slide, Gaurav. So as we continue through this workshop, we will share, as I mentioned, how our community has supported society at large. But before we get into some of those details, we'd like to humbly remind everybody that our social responsibility is to create a positive impact. And that starts with our civic duty, which is just one way to have a positive impact on society. If you live in the US, it's not an understatement to say on November 5th, we will have the most important election of our life in front of us. So not to get political in this forum, but please go out and vote. Irrespective of which state you live in or which party you're planning to vote for, assume the outcome in your state. So please go out and vote. It's important to lead by example. And as Gandhi's famous quote goes, be the change you wish to see in the world. We have to change first if we want to see that in the world. Next slide, please. So on Vivekji's guidance, we have raised over $897,000 for non-faith-based charities since 2020 towards our goal of raising $1 million by Guruji's birthday in June of 2025. Our vision is our community's responsibility is our society. Our mission is Dana is our dharma. And our action is to support the various causes like a mental health, food insecurity, underserved, women's empowerment, and Mother Earth. I'm not going to go into the details of all these various charities that we've supported, but you're more than welcome to go to the Chinmaya Mission Niagara website and read about this under the Initiatives tab. Next slide, please. One ongoing initiative that we're actively supporting by giving our effort, time, and resources is for Efforts for Her Story, where we as a community have raised resources of over $64,000 towards a goal of $54,000. We've done extremely well towards our target, and we thank you all for contributing. We've donated supplies to local women's shelter and have donated close to 7,400 items. And you can continue to donate to your local women's shelter till November 11th. In terms of time, we have extended the deadline to December 1st, and we encourage all of you to sign up for the daily reading. You can use the URL below and register, and you can be part of that book club and also part of the reading. All right, next slide, please. Moving on, this is a recap of our previous workshop we had a few months ago, where we explored creative ways of contributing. We spoke about how we can donate an old car. That's something that you have, but you're thinking about a new car, you don't know what to do. This is something you can donate to your local community and local society. You can donate time. by using your unique skills. We are all blessed with unique skills, and we can use this to help community and society. And we had Rupa Rangnath, one of our fellow seekers, who came and gave a lovely talk about the art she creates and how she's using that to donate and contribute to society. I'd like to now invite Gaurav to take you through the next portion of the workshop.
Hariom. What we want to talk about today is that irrespective of our age, we all have different abilities and we all can contribute. So sometimes we might wonder if we're youthful that, hey, we don't have financial resources at our disposal. We still have time and effort. Conversely, as we age, if we think about seniors, they may not necessarily have the same youthful energy they did when they were kids, but they have experience. And so they have the ability to donate resources and time. So just to elucidate a few examples, because kids may not necessarily have financial resources, they still have the ability, a lot of musical talents, for instance, and they can perform at local retirement facilities for families. In the past, our community has planted trees as part of an initiative of environmental awareness. One thing that we will touch on actually as a community in 2025 is planning legacy donations for our Vanaprasthas. But altogether, the big thing that we want to take away, and I hope everyone's learned this year as we've done the efforts for awe, equality, safety, her story, is that giving comes in a bunch of different ways, some of which are more obvious and some of which are more subtle. And our goal this evening is just to illustrate a few examples that we all can learn from and use to be more active. With that in mind, what we're going to do is we're going to have a few different speakers share their experience. You'll recognize many of them, but first and foremost, I'd love to hand it over to Sudarshan, who's a smiling face in many of our classes.
You're able to hear me? Okay. All right. Hariom, everyone. Gratitude to Vigji and the Philanthropy for Society team for this opportunity to reflect and share today on this journey of giving. I'm Sudarshan Atmavlas. I'm a fourth year student at the University of Virginia. I entered this community in March 2020 with the divine pull of meaningful mornings, entering this life just when I needed it during COVID. And from there, it's been the high school course, Power Hour, Seeking Culture, mentorship, and it's only grown since. So that's how I entered this community. But what was the spark to actually start giving back and not just getting the satsang through my ears? At that point in 2020, I felt for several years in my Bal Vihar assembly. I grew up in Bal Vihar my whole life, and I'd always chant the pledge, including the one line that always resonated with me: producing more than what we consume and giving more than what we take. And every time I would say that, I would feel like kind of like a fraud for chanting this like a parrot each week and not following. I would keep parroting. I give more than what I take. But what did I actually give or produce for anybody else? I was giving nothing and only consuming and taking. And so I kind of felt over time saying this again and again, it was hitting my conscience. I knew something needed to change. And so I knew I needed to invest in my own balance before even being able to give. If I'm not rooted, how can I give to anybody? And so after those 2 years in this community and watching a complete transformation in my habits and lifestyle, time investment, vision, and finally quietude and happiness, I felt that I was ready to give back. I had finally put on my oxygen mask and I was able to help somebody else. And so I felt that this community, this satsanga, this Sanatana Dharma had given me everything valuable in life, had given me my life back, essentially. How could I not give back to this community, to Sanatana Dharma? And so essentially I started to give through whatever means I could. And previously this was the podcast seva. Currently it's Rhythm Divine, which is an English Gita project, Lifestyle Training, Seva, the Wednesday course facilitating, Hindu Student Council, which is a Hindu organization at my university. So those are the three in an official way, with Prithvi Seva and others unofficially on their own. And so obviously, as a college student, I've only ever had a few summer internships for a few weeks. I've had very limited resources to give. I tried to give as much as I can, but there's, it runs out very quickly. So I decided to give more in terms of time and effort, which I did have. And this required reprioritizing to be able to make time for what was important. So really for me, Dana means time and effort. And so last year, I was given the podcast Seva. I would listen to recordings, write the episode descriptions and titles for the 100 Steps to Infinity course, actually along with Deepalji, who's also here, to understand what Vivekji was saying and try to restate it as a metaphor, such as our lives being like chasing a mirage across a desert. So this was real reflectiveness training to revolve around Vivekji the whole day, to personalize his teachings. Then there's the Rhythm Divine Seva, the English Gita project. So this was actually started as a sadhana for me. It was a year of reflecting and trying to write every verse that we were learning in the Gita in the same meter as the original, but in English. And I ended up doing that for the top 70 verses that we went through about a year ago. Before now, we're editing and music coordinating to release it as a rap. So as Gaurav had just shared, I'm giving art as well, or skill, I guess, based on how you look at it. But I could really feel every word, and I learned from that only what I personalize can I internalize. And now it's kind of vision training, to have the vision of what myself and what the next generation needs to connect to Sanatana Dharma, to be inspired and help create that for them. And so that was the first. The second is a lifestyle training course facilitating Seva. It's my first time being on kind of a team for like live facilitating. So planning dynamics for the Wednesday class. And this has been great empathy training for understanding where others are in their journey and appreciating them for what they share and where they are. So I've learned a lot from that as well. And finally, through the Hindu Student Council at my university, it's the main Hindu organization. I've been given the role of co-president of the organization. I was event coordinator for 2 years. So this is actually my longest lasting seva for over 2 years now. So it's been great just sharing my reflections on it. It's great acceptance training. I'm learning to accept longer meetings, different teammates with different backgrounds. It's training in purpose over person and not giving more to prove that I'm doing enough to validate the co-president position, but simply as an opportunity to offer to help expose and bring out the utility of Sanatana Dharma to the next generation. It's been caring training, to care about and feel close to exec team and new members. And I learned that caring pulls consciousness. That's the one thing I keep thinking about. The more I care about the divinity in others' hearts, the more I can feel the divinity in their hearts. And lastly, it's been really great relatability training and presenting at huge events for festivals like Garba and Deepavali, up to 300 people, and found that the more I reflected on each festival personally, the more I could explain it simply and relatably to a group of college students. And last year, actually just this year, it was Efforts for Awe and Prithvi Seva, where I started to really love Prithvi Devi. And with all the reflections, I still pick up trash on every walk I go on. So Efforts for Awe actually hasn't ended for me. And so that's what drives me to give more and more, is that the reflection that joy is in giving. The Gurudev quote that happiness depends on what you can give and not on what you can get. So what that means for me is when you give consciously, you can let go subconsciously. That selflessness pulls serenity. So in summary, my main learnings, the spark was that when I realized that I've been given everything by Sanatana Dharma, by the environment, how can I not give back? When teaching, writing, and sharing, it's an opportunity to reflect. So only what you personalize do you internalize. When facilitating or with students, it's an opportunity to empathize. That caring pulls consciousness. And when working on a team or for a purpose, it's to feel that selflessness pulls serenity. The more you give consciously, the more you can let go subconsciously. That's why I give, and that's why we should give. Gratitude for this opportunity to speak. Ariel, now transitioning over to Deepalji and her children.
Hi, I'm Sai. I'm Sai. I'm a fifth grader at College Station, Texas. Every year, our family gives resources to a school in Mumbai, India. This school is for kids with physical and mental challenges. Last year, we actually went to the school and gave in person. We got to serve them lunch and spend time with the students. We saw children struggling to walk and eat. They were cheerful despite their situation. Couple of things that surprised me was that they had to climb 80 steps just to get to their classroom because they don't have an elevator. The students also told us they eat the same thing for lunch every single day, which is khichdi, except on donation days. After this experience, I felt good inside because we gave our time, effort, and resources to them. 2023 Christmas, we got an opportunity to give instead of getting gifts. But really, giving made us more grateful for what we have, and it was better than getting any gifts.
Hey, my name is Jaya. I'm in third grade. One way I give is to not hurt the environment. An example is my birthday. It is in April, close to Earth Day. A few things I do are no balloons, no gifts. Instead, I ask friends to donate to a charity. For party favors, we give seeds. Helping the environment makes me feel good. Thank you.
Hari Om. My name is Deepal Shanmugam, and we're from College Station, Texas. And I'm a mom to Sai and Jaya. They're 11 and 8 years old. And I'm also a nurse practitioner. So I know life gets busy, and sometimes seva and any kind of sadhana like that sometimes goes out the door. But, you know, I came across Vivekji in 2018 through YouTube, and it has completely changed my life since. And as a parent of young kids, I have realized that, you know, my husband and I, we hope to teach our children to be selfless more than anything. And the best way we know how to teach them to be selfless is to set an example and do it ourselves. And, you know, Sai and Jaya spoke about a couple of situations or ways that we serve every year. And, you know, I just realized that every day there's an opportunity to serve if you just really look for it. And these are the bigger things that we have done, you know, the school in Mumbai, and of course, all the opportunities that Vivekji gives us, that we have participated in those. And, you know, just little things like just within our community is like serving at our local mandir, picking up litter, like Sudarshan said, you know, he still does it. We still do it. Planting trees, composting, serving at food banks, anything in our community really, and any opportunity, like I said, we get, even small little ones, whether it's helping a friend who's going through, you know, a health challenge or something bigger for the environment. So those are just some ways we serve. And we always try to serve as a family, most importantly, because we want our kids to see that this is a lifelong sadhana and that it can be done at any age. And not only at any age, but any aspect of our life can be used to promote a culture of giving. So that's just what we strive for, that we're hoping that, you know, even Christmases, birthdays, like gifts, we have everything we need. There's nothing more that we need. So why not just give? And we're hoping that we teach our children the same, and that they can carry on those traditions as they get older. But thank you, Vivekji, and thank you, team, for giving us this opportunity to share with you all. Now I just want to pass it on to Bhumika, who is in a different phase of parenting. Hari Om.
Hari Om, everyone. My name is Bhumika Patel. I am from Chino Hills, California. I am the parent of 2 college-age children. I myself am also a college student. So my husband is supporting 3 starving students. I came across Vivekji in 2020 after I volunteered as a parent chaperone for a quad trip. My kids were really excited about Vivek and shared like I should plug into community and what a community it is. I have been part of Chiang Mai Mission since 2009, CMLA, but I really, really appreciate the holistic sort of feeling of this community. So thank you so much for welcoming me. So to echo a lot of what Deepalji shared about birthdays and seva and having it be a very like family-oriented experience. In our family, we have sort of a motto, see a need, fill a need. And this kind of started like 20 years back with my firstborn, with just a service on birthdays. It started with donating items to women's shelters, children's shelters. It transitioned into when they could actually physically participate, for them to be doing the shopping, for them to be doing the packing, for them to be doing all the drop-offs. And then they decided that they were wanting to support this effort, this brown bag brigade effort to provide lunches to homeless people. So we would pack lunches, brown bag lunches, 100, 150 of them, and they would pass them out on their birthdays. Again, transitioned into choosing a charitable cause and making a monetary donation as they grew up. So it's definitely sort of developed and grown as the children have grown, and also extended to the greater family. So for my parents' birthdays, for our birthdays, we make a donation instead of sending gifts. And more recently, in the past 8 years, another way that I have, I guess, shed, you know, like sort of myself with my community is to help high school seniors with college applications. So just started with editing essays or, you know, just proofreading. And then it's developed into actually fully helping choose colleges or like majors and things like that, just to maybe alleviate some of the stress at that time. It's a very, very stressful time for families, and having somebody from like outside the family just sort of be like a support. I think people have shared with me that that has made a difference. In terms of impact, I'd love to share a couple of things that my sons, when I asked them, like, how, like, did this impact you? Just even the birthday activity, how did that impact you in the long run? Because I have a 20-year-old and 19-year-old. The response that they shared with me is that they've become more sensitive to issues in society, that it set up the groundwork for them to become involved in service individually. And I'd love to share with you how they have adapted this in their lives. One of my sons focuses on, his focus is on decreasing higher education costs and for greater access by campaigning on campuses. And my other son, being inspired from the Cord Trip, has joined an organization on campus, Project Rishi, that is basically promotes sustainable development and growth of rural Indian communities in partnership with local communities. Most recently, he has identified a gap in dental health education and initiated a program whereby local dental students will provide services at health fairs for the communities. I think that when I think about why I serve or where that came from, I have a really hard time identifying that, because it was very natural, very innate for me, given that, you know, fill a need, like, I mean, just see a need, fill a need. But when I investigated that further, I really came to a point of understanding that this community has given me, fundamentally, serving others is serving the divine. It helps us see the oneness in all. And this karma yoga, in a sense, is performed without expectation. And it contributes to my spiritual purification, my spiritual growth. So I'm really getting more than I'm putting in here. It's really a focus on the greater good and seeing the unity in the universe. And for that, I'm really, really grateful. With that, I will pass it on to Indraji. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Hari Om, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you, Vivekji. I fall into the Vanaprastha group at this point in time. And I'm very grateful for Chinmaya Mission Cleveland. That's where I attend satsangs and I also serve. Met Vivekji in 2014 when he came into Cleveland, and we have been learning from Vivekji since then. We just opened up our new ashram and we installed Gayatri Devi. So it's been a very hectic year, very exciting year, very inspiring year. As far as why and what drives me to give, I'm reminded of this. I don't know whether any of you have heard this Aarti, Om Jai Jagadisha Hare. There are 4 lines in the middle of this Aarti that says, Tan man dhan sab hai tera, sab kuch hai tera, tera tujhko arpan kya lage mera. It primarily translates as this body, this mind, all the resources that we have. It really all belongs to Bhagwan. And we are just offering what is Bhagwan, what belongs to Bhagwan, back to Bhagwan, to the divinity. So this has been sort of the driving force in my life all along, that this is that nothing that we have here is really mine, so to speak. It has just been given to me for me to use it as it's needed, and it is to be shared. And what has been given has to be shared, and shared freely without any expectation from anything in return. And this was a lesson taught to me by my parents, and I'm just sort of spreading it forward at this point in time. And as far as how am I serving, how am I giving back to society at this point in time in this phase of life? It's in many different ways, and it has sort of evolved over time. And I'm really in awe of all these young people, all of you who are so incredibly civic-minded and helping people. Going back in time when we immigrated from India, we were, as Vivekji stated, we were so focused on getting established because there was no support system. Didn't really know a whole lot of people, so there was so much of the focus was on getting established. And it is in the latter probably 10, 15 years later than after that is when we really began to think about how we can actually begin to serve, and it's really evolved into something beautiful. I've been part of this women's group in Cleveland, which really addresses the domestic violence issues. So I've been serving there since 1990 or something like that. So I'm then also serve as a spiritual guide, spiritual caregiver in a way, in a continuing care community here in Cleveland. I've also recently started serving as a Hindu spiritual caregiver and also as a chaplain at a local hospital. And as far as sharing resources, it's primarily for people, it could be children, could be adults, and many times the resources, the money-wise, it's donated during our birthdays. And the other tradition that I've been doing for the last several years is on birthdays, planting trees. Arbor Day Foundation has an incredible program where you can plant trees, $2 per tree, and you can plant as many trees as you want. So depending on the number of the birthday, I donate as many trees. If someone's turning 40, you can donate 40 trees. So I've been doing that for several years right now. And as far as effort and resources and time, it's been an honor to be part of Chinmaya Mission Cleveland, Chinmaya Gayatri, as Balavihar and Vedanta coordinator, and also as a substitute teacher, and anything else and anywhere else that I'm needed. So all of these opportunities to serve really makes me feel very, very grateful for all these opportunities. And also, it sort of fosters this feeling in me and has strengthened this feeling in me that I've always had within me, which is that I've always been taken care of. That even when there were stressful times, turbulent times, things still worked out. So I have this deep faith inside of me that no matter what comes our way, every one of our way, that things will be taken care of, including this election. So thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you, Vivekji. Gratitude. Now turning over to Gaurav, please.
Hari Om, first and foremost, I'm most grateful for all our speakers. I think everyone's insight was incredibly inspiring. And definitely I learned a little bit from each and every person, but I would say succinctly, I'm inspired to prioritize my time and find more ways to do more. The next section of our workshop will be breakout rooms. We will break out into two rooms, and we will talk about this. There are three general questions. Between our three categories, time, effort, and resources, where do you feel like you're able to give more, or excuse me, give the most? And just based off what we've heard and based off your own reflections, are there ways you can give more? And how do you think about that in the context of your local community and beyond? We'll now break out into two groups and for about 10 minutes, and then we'll debrief afterwards. We had planned this time to hop immediately into Q&A. And I'm just ad-libbing because I'm very excited and very uplifted after our workshop today. So I just wanted to ask, does anyone have any reflections from the workshop, from their breakout room that they'd like to share in the chat, or anything that they'd like to share more broadly in our community? Feel free to raise your hand.
Oh, Hari Om. So just my take home from this is already have started mulling a little bit, like, where do I start? But I think for me, it's just do something and don't think too much. I'm trying, when you want to do so much, but sometimes it's an excuse that you're busy or whatnot, and there's so much and I don't know where to start, and you end up procrastinating. So I felt after all of this inspiration is we did start something in our family yesterday, and we put something out, but just do it and not think too much about it. That's my take. Sometimes you think too much.
That's awesome. I think, speaking on behalf of the Savaks on the team, I think that's what we all realized, that let's start at whatever level and continue growing and building positive momentum in that direction.
Yeah.
I think Vanita Ji also had her hand up.
Hari Om. I was just going to say that, we're all involved with different communities which help women in need and children and food bank and all of that. One of the areas that few people touch are seniors' homes. There are a lot of Indian families where parents are living there, and those parents are actually quite isolated because nobody really ever visits them. And I had one of my Bal Vihar families, she was telling me that they live in an apartment complex, and one of the parents was sick. So she, along with her son, who's a Bal Vihar student, he's in grade 7, they went and they visited this family, and they just sang some bhajans and, did whatever, just simple talk, and just, sang an aarti and all that, spent about half an hour. And she said, you will not believe how that lady cried. So my effort right now is I'm trying to see, like, a lot of the local shelters will not allow you to just come in randomly and, help because of different reasons. So I have to find a way that, we can support at least some people there. And that's one of the things that, besides the other stuff that is going on, I think that's a vital part, because there are communities like the Ismaili community and the Sikh community where they have people going regularly to visit families belonging, in those homes. So I think it's important for us also to do something like that.
From personal experience, I can appreciate what you're saying. And that's a beautiful sharing altogether. Vinita ji, if our team can help you with the Sankalpa, help organize it and things of that sort, the Philanthropy for Society team is at your disposal. And if anyone else has any other Sankalpas that they'd like to take as well, by all means, we'd love to hear your sharing, your reflections, your inspiration.
Thank you.
I think Shrikant is sharing in the chat that his daughter plays violin at the senior living homes often. The joy it brings to residents is priceless. Yeah. Having seen my grandfather at an assisted living facility, I can definitely say that there is a lot of sadness, like sadness in amongst the elderly. So
100%.
it's a very much a worthwhile cause. Apar?
How are you? Wondering if I can ask a open-ended question, if we still have time for it.
I think we have a couple minutes. Please go ahead.
Cool. So, I was really reflecting on how any sort of giving that encourages discomfort and self-development is important. But I find that we're often at odds between two choices: giving to learn to self-develop in more difficult environments, or giving because we're the right person for a specific role where maybe the outcome would be not as positive if you hadn't played that role. Whereas in that second scenario, like maybe it doesn't help you develop as much because it just comes naturally to you. And so I'm wondering, from really anyone, should we seek out roles that help us self-develop, even though the outcomes might not be as widespread as we'd like, or roles that come more naturally to us that can make more of an impact?
That's a fairly profound question. Before I dive in, or does anyone else have any thoughts that they'd like to share with Apar overall? Bhumika, please.
I would say start with your passion and then continue the self-development so it becomes concurrent. So I think the passion definitely will get you into the space, and the development will take you even farther than where you are at this point in time.
Yeah, I'd have to
Okay.
concur. I think that the one thing that I talk to is specifically my boys about is like share your talents. Your talents were, I mean, they're God's gift to you. So share them, don't hoard them. So that's kind of how we look at it. And I think when you're sharing your talents and you're sharing your passions, it just becomes a more joyful experience for you as well. That's just my take on it. So I think I would have to concur with Indraji on that.
Shobaji?
Yes, I have to. I'm all over this so often because I'm a physician, so I feel I really feel what Apar feels because of what I do. It's so easy to serve. Just the nature of the job, and just obviously there's many ways many can, but I the first part of what he mentioned really resonates with me because I want to do things that make it uncomfortable for me, because it just that difficulty personally, and maybe this is a selfish way of thinking also, but that it's gratifying to do something which you put more effort at some level. And I agree with initially with the passion, but personally for myself, I see it the other way.
I would be remiss if I didn't say, I was just thinking of the True Mission motto: maximum happiness for maximum amount of people for the maximum amount of time. So I would venture to guess that that would be our number one goal. But I don't think that's what jumps out to me without digressing. Sudarshan, I think you also had your hand up earlier.
Yeah, I just had some thoughts to share, which I've just been sharing in the chat. That at least from my experience, it's kind of been both ways. That when I give for the podcast, Ava, I had barely ever like written before that much. But once I filled the need, I realized like my love for writing from the podcast, Ava. So I was essentially handed that Seva and said, "This is what the community needs. We don't have enough writers." And I developed and realized a passion for that. And now like so much of what I do is about words. And it's also gone the other way around that like exactly what I needed has always been given to me. And from that's been the best form of evolution. And so when you start by seeking out Seva, and the Seva will very soon start seeking out you. And that's been my experience. So and it's always been for my best. Are you?
Pausing for a second, we are at 10:02 Eastern. So what I would like to do is officially close the workshop by saying Om. If anyone wants to stick around and talk a little bit more for the next few minutes, we can do that afterwards. But just for the people who need to wind down for the evening, we certainly want to be respectful. So, Om.